What's up, gamers? It's your host, Cobra, and today we've got big updates on Riot Racers. Riot Racers has absolutely been on a tear this month, which is excellent to see. They have hit some critical points in their development and roadmap, including launching paid racing earlier this month and activating play-to-earn mechanics, which is fantastic development that we love to see. This week, though, they put out not just one, but two updates that were almost completely unexpected and include quite a bit of development. So one of those things has already been turned on. The other one is coming as soon as next month. So let's dive right in. Update number 1 is that spawning and rentals are both coming relatively soon. Let's start with rentals because that is the portion of this update that we actually did expect. And the way that it is going to work is that you're going to have two avenues for renting out either a car that you own or a driver that you own. And the first way is to offer up a split agreement. This will feel very familiar to anybody that has been playing Axie Infinity or any other game that offers a scholarship. And the benefit is that the renter doesn't have to pay anything up front. So they can treat this like a free-to-play game if they want to. And they can rent both a driver and a car and start racing without having to spend any money at all. That is really important for the growth of the game because here at the Freeroll, we believe that free-to-play is the best way to hook new users, especially when you've got a quality product like we're seeing here from Riot Racers. The other option for renting is to offer up a rental for a flat fee. And the way that that will work is you will set that fee for your driver or car, and the renter pays it up front, but then they get to keep all of the proceeds from their actual winning and usage of that asset. So which one is going to be better off? We will have to see what the market dictates. My expectation is that the split arrangement is going to be much more popular than paying up front because it's a lower risk option for the renter, and like I said, it creates a free-to-play avenue. One quick programming note, because I know a bunch of you aren't going to get to the end, but I always include timestamps below in the description. So if you're only here to learn about racing school, go ahead and click on that link below. Also, please consider giving us a like and subscribe. As a young channel, it really helps support our growth. The second part to that update is spawning. And as you may have guessed, spawning is a breeding mechanic that is going to exist within the Riot Racers ecosystem. The way that it works is that any two drivers or any two cars can pair together and spawn an additional driver or car. Now, you might be thinking, this game already has a whole lot of similarities to an existing project called Zrun, and you would be correct. And you might also be thinking that Zrun has really lost a lot of steam as a project, in large part because of breeding. But the flip side to that is it gained a ton of steam in large part because of breeding. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this mechanic plays out with Riot Racers. They benefit from the fact that we got to see, both in Axie Infinity and Zrun, how overbreeding can really hurt your overall economy and ecosystem. And because of that, they've put a couple of deflationary measures in place. The first of which is that all cars and drivers are going to have a time to retire. Now, the Genesis drivers and cars, as well as the Apollo cars, will not have a retirement. They will last forever. But anything that they spawn is going to have a time to retire, and that essentially automatically burns it once that time is up. So we'll see what those specifics look like when those details are released, but it's nice to see that they're thinking about it at least. The other factor is that there is going to be a controlled limit in terms of how much you're allowed to spawn with each asset. And that's really nice because that gives them the ability to really spread it out and allow spawning to happen as a way to keep up with growth in the project, as opposed to just spamming the marketplace so that within a cycle or two, breeding becomes essentially worthless. Now, there is a whole bunch about spawning that we still need to learn about, and that's going to come in future updates as well. So keep an eye on this space for when those details do drop. However, they included quite a lot of detail in this announcement, and we're going to review that together now. First things first, your Genesis cars, your Apollo cars, and your Genesis drivers are now considered Tier 1 assets. That is because when they spawn, they're going to be spawning Tier 2 assets, and Tier 2 assets are going to be a little bit different. The big differences here is that a Tier 1 asset has no time to retire, meaning they never retire. We can use them in perpetuity forever, which is great. That adds some really nice value to those collections. Tier 2 assets are going to have a time to retire, which means they have a limited amount of use and then they are automatically burned. How much use and how much time before they get burned to be determined, but that is an important deflationary mechanic which will hopefully keep us from over spawning and flooding the market with too many cars and too many drivers. Tier 1 assets are also going to be able to spawn earlier and more frequently than Tier 2 assets, which again adds some further value. The other differences with Tier 2 is that there's no rarity and they are more basic designs. However, they can be used on the same racetracks and in theory can beat a Genesis car. The act of spawning itself is going to require a combination of Riot tokens as well as Ethereum, which is interesting. I expected it to be entirely in Riot. However, it seems there will be some fees on both sides. And the way that it will work is you're going to pair up any two assets, same type of assets, of course, together to initiate the spawning. With drivers, you actually do need a male and female pair, which curiously leaves out the mecha drivers. Those are supposed to be the best drivers in the collection, and all that they announced is that there are details to come. My expectation there is we will probably see some mecha-specific spawning that is put into the marketplace, but they're not quite ready with that just yet. We shall see, and we really like the mecha drivers, so I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like. With cars, there's obviously no gender, so any two together will be able to produce another car. The way that it's going to work with cars is that they will have the base stats just like every other car. The factory class of the car, though, is going to depend on the parent cars. And the way that it works is it will be equal to the lesser of the two parents. So let's say you took a driver car and a rookie car, spawn them together, you're going to get a rookie Tier 2 car as your spawn. However, if you took two pro cars and spawn them together, you're going to get a pro car Tier 2 as your offspring. Now, both the rental and spawning updates are expected sometime in Q2. Today is March 18th, which means we've got less than 2 weeks of Q1 still available, which means it could be coming as soon as April. Realistically, since they just announced it, it should be expected that we see it towards the end, if not the very end of Q2, but that's a nice little buffer. So sometime in the next few months, we'll see these updates roll out. And that brings us to the other really exciting update. And this one actually happened earlier in the week. However, I think it's more apt at the end of this video because of the way that they fit together. And the big news here is that Riot Racers has released a feature they are calling Racing School. And Racing School is a new version of free races. The big difference here, though, is that it has a prize pool every single time, although it's a very small prize pool, and it is based on the class of the race, with legendary races having the highest prize pool and rookie races having the smallest prize pool. The other major difference, though, is that only 3 racers are allowed into each one. So not only is it free, but you're guaranteed to finish on the podium, which means you are going to get some Riot every single time you run one of these. Now, granted, the rewards are small, and the Riot token today doesn't trade for a tremendous amount, so nobody's going to pay their bills with racing school. However, this does add a really interesting dynamic when you combine it with the spawning and renting that is going to be coming in the near future. I mentioned earlier that renting creates a free-to-play avenue for players. And when you combine that with Racing School, which is a free option to earn actual cryptocurrency, that means that now anybody can create a Riot Racers account and spend no dollars at all, enter into a race, and start earning money. This is true, simple play to earn. Again, it's not going to be big dollars, and if you're living in the US or in most places in Europe, it's not going to be a dollar amount that really moves the needle for you, at least today. However, if you live in the Philippines or any of the lower cost of living countries, this could be a noticeable amount of money that you're earning, and you're, again, able to do it with no spending of your own up front, which is really cool. Now, if this catches on, and I believe it will, it's going to create quite a lot of opportunity for those of us holding the tier 1 assets, both in terms of renting as well as spawning, because spawning is going to create extra assets that we can sell off or rent out, and we should expect those to be much cheaper than the cars and drivers we see on the market today. The other really cool thing about Racing School is that it solves one of my earliest complaints. If you remember from a couple videos back, I mentioned that a handful of racers that put in a lot of time and effort during the free beta racing period were kicking everybody's asses, and that made the paid racing not that much fun because it was very difficult to get onto the podium. Now we have Racing School, which is providing a whole lot more free races, so there's way more opportunity for you to get in and test out and hopefully learn some new strategies that work out really great. In fact, in doing a bunch of Racing School this week, I found a new strategy that is working out pretty well so far, and we're now testing it a whole bunch more in paid races, but I'm not sure I would have discovered that had I not been doing Racing School, which is very cool. And that wraps up today's update video on Riot Racers, rentals, spawning, and Racing School. If you found this video helpful, and I hope you did, consider giving us a follow on Twitter. That's where I like to interact with fans, answer your questions, and talk about play-to-earn gaming in general. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can support the channel.